since I came as a refugee in this country, which spiritually, truly our home, Bharat. We are the student of Nalanda Tradition. So Nalanda is, I think, one of ancient Indian famous institution. And that institution, I think, through few centuries, I think topmost thinker, philosopher, logician is produced. So since 8th century, the Tibetan emperor, he himself, I think, son of one Chinese princess, since 7th century, Tibetan Raja married with Chinese princess. But 8th century is it that Tibetan master, the Tibetan emperor. Now he realized the very, very authentic and most advanced Buddhist tradition exists in Nalanda. So he invited, at that time, the topmost, famous scholar, Shantarakshita, a monk, scholar, and a great logician. You see, his writing, we also study. So really great sort of scholar and a logician. So he invited to Tibet, and he introduced Buddha Dharma according to Nalanda tradition. So then I want to teach you Indian. You forget these things. We Tibetan kept all this knowledge over 1,000 years. So therefore, say, we are the student of Nalanda tradition. So Nalanda tradition, not only just Buddhism, religion, but a lot of sort of, a lot of knowledge about human emotion, human mind, their psychology. And then Nalanda tradition is when we sort of think anything, we always use reason, investigation. So some of Nalanda master, they actually rejected Buddha's own sort of some verses. If you accept this verse literally, then it goes against the reason. Therefore, we must reject. It is quite unique, isn't it? Like Nagarjuna and Chandakirti and so on. These great masters of Nalanda, they emphasis reason, experiment is more important than just faith. Buddha himself, told us that, oh, my follower, monks, scholars should not accept my teaching out of faith, out of devotion, but rather thorough investigation, like that, and experiment. So we are I think now today's world, only Tibetan. The Chinese, the number of Buddhists, over 300 million Buddhists there, but they are not much pay attention for study, and particularly logic, pramana. So we learn by heart, like Pramana Vartika Karika, wrote by Dharmakirti, and his teacher, the Dignac. All these, we study the Buddhist logic. So we always used to use logical approach. So therefore, now I notice the scientists also used to always investigate, not faith, and experiment. So that's very similar Nalanda tradition. So therefore, this very room, several occasions, meeting with scientists, our way of thinking, way of approach, Nalanda tradition, and modern scientists, way of sort of thinking, similar, investigate. So as a result, more than 30 years, also the discussion with scientists, it became very clear, mutual learning. We also learn something useful information from scientists about external matter. The internal matter, emotion, mind, these things, the modern psychology, sometimes I describing Western psychology, compare ancient Indian psychology, modern psychology looks like a kindergarten level. India's psychology, highly advanced. This also is not necessarily come from Buddhist tradition. In this country, over 3,000 years, already you see developed the concept of, say, ahimsa. Ahimsa, very much related with karuna. So it's how to develop karuna through training, not faith. Then, in order to tackle our emotion, they already developed shamatha and vipassana investigation. Over 3,000 years, Buddha himself, product of India's that tradition. So therefore, we as a Nalanda, student of Nalanda tradition, I found very useful in that knowledge. Now, unfortunately, now I'm going to teasing you, you Indian. I usually say telling this physical, not Indian, but my mind is I'm more Indian than you. You modern educated Indian, modern education. Oh, nothing, this knowledge. You just follow education which introduced by Britisher. So now therefore, the later part of my life, now already 83-year-old, perhaps next few years, I dedicated not only myself, at least 10,000 monk students who study using this knowledge 20, 30 years. So our way is firstly memorize root text, then each word explain according to Nalanda master's commentary. Then we use extensively debate. So over 10,000 monk students available in this country now. I'm hoping this knowledge, I think, should be used by our Indian friends. These, actually, you see, out of 300 volumes, all translated from India, mainly Sanskrit, and some extent, some Pali. So all these 300 volumes, over 300 volumes, the Buddhist the text, you see, in the content way. In the content, you see, there we can divide three parts: science, mainly mind, emotion. Then philosophy, like quantum physics. Perhaps you may have heard Raja Ramana, late Raja Ramana. Is a nuclear physicist. He once told me the quantum physics in the West is something new. In this country, over 2,600 years already developed that concept. It is very true. So therefore, the philosophy, one part, the third part, religion. That's for Buddhist. But other thing, I consider academic subject, not religious subject. So now that, according again Indian tradition, secular way. Whether believer or non-believer, it's not matter. But these psychology, knowledge of psychology and quantum physics, these things are academic subject. So therefore, now these ancient Indian knowledge, I found something very relevant to today's world. I think 1,000-year-old concept of ahimsa, which Mahatma Gandhi implemented during freedom fight. So that gradually, you see more people attracted, like Nelson Mandela and in America, Martin Luther King. So now similarly, India's knowledge about emotion, how to tackle emotion, strictly secular way. I think that today's world, a lot of problem. Actually, I think originally, ultimately from emotion. Too much problem. So therefore, 1,000-year-old India's tradition, I think now should be utilized in order to tackle our emotion. Through that way, that is the only way to keep inner peace. Without inner peace, external peace, impossible. With full of anger, suspicion, very difficult. So therefore, I think India's this ancient knowledge, I think very useful today's world. Now, in order to, help the other countries, firstly, this knowledge should revive in modern India. India, I think, the only nation who can combine modern education, which oriented about material value, that also very necessary. At the same time, ancient Indian knowledge tackle our mind, emotion, to bring inner peace. India is the only nation who can combine these two things, isn't it? So you Indian, please pay more attention about ancient your knowledge, knowledge about our inner world. That's very important. So my commitment is try to revival of these ancient Indian knowledge in modern India through education, not through puja. add some color put here. Of course, part of the culture, but real culture is knowledge here. Knowledge here. That is India's culture. Okay. So because of that, I really extremely happy meeting with the educated young Indian. Thank you. Now some questions and discuss.
You can introduce yourself first and then ask questions.
Sit. No. No formality. No formality.
Tashidile, Your Holiness. I'm Shopna Mitro. I have done my PhD on Tibetan refugees in India, and then I have done my MPhil also. Now I'm a teacher in college. Actually, I have two questions to you. That first one is that we Indians are doing research on Tibetan refugees in India and in abroad. Refugees and Tibet. So what are the other areas of research about Tibet history we should look after? This is very important. If you give us any kind of suggestion that what are the other areas of research that we can do much work. And the next one is that do you feel that Tibet will get is autonomy? Thank you.
I think you should pay more attention, as I mentioned earlier. Our knowledge, which come from India, so in that respect, I think you should pay more attention. I said, now, that Tibetan culture, heritage, and knowledge, these things, is something now unique on this whole planet. So that cultural heritage really brings Tibetan self-confidence and inner strength. Therefore, in the past, I think, almost like 2,000 years, you see, sometimes you see Tibetan, even something like civil war, or sometimes the Chinese invasion. And similarly, some occasion, Tibetan also invaded China, like the Tang dynasty, the capital, Xing'an. I have been there. The most sacred Buddha statue which we kept in Lhasa, which brought by Gongju, Chinese princess. So when I visited, you see, that temple in Xing'an, the Tang capital, Tang dynasty capital. So there, see, empty sort of seat there. From there, that sacred Buddhist statue brought to Tibet. So like that. So at that time, my point is, the Tibetan sort of army reached that capital. That also, actually, one occasion, 1955, when I was returning from Peking to Lhasa, I spent a few days in Xing'an. One day, no official program, so we just go to sightseeing. And then the one Chinese high official, he accompanied with me. Very nice one. While we just, rest on the wall of the city, he told me, one time, Tibetan army reached here. The emperor of Chinese, Tang emperor, have to flee from his own capital. He told, just casually. So like that, some occasion, Tibetan invaded China. And when in some occasion, Chinese invaded Tibet. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes the civil war, Tibet, I think, 7th century, 8th century, 9th century, unified Tibet, very strong. Then later part of, I think, 19th century, Tibetan, some sort of internal problem, and then disintegrated, and that. So politically, ups and downs, but Tibetan spirit kept. All these difficult period, the Tibetan, or say the knowledge which come from Nalanda, you see, that really keeps Tibetan spirit. So then last, now, about 70 years, the Chinese communists, you see, they utilize various methods, killing, torture, and brainwash, and also give some money. All sorts of methods they utilize, but fail to reduce Tibetan spirit. So this spirit, like any nation, any community, culture is the key factor to keep. Not necessarily belief, but it's a certain sort of knowledge. Therefore, and then some Chinese officials also, now they mention Tibetan Buddhist, so not much danger of violence. Whereas in Uyghur, Xinjiang, Muslim, so a lot of problem, a lot of killing. So the Buddhist tradition, non-violence, we Tibetan, 6 million Tibetan, you see, under most difficult circumstances, we practice non-violence, ahimsa. So now today, more and more Chinese is showing interest about Tibetan Buddhist tradition, which come from Nalanda, the same source. China, also the Tangsen. Century Kware, Tangsen? 7th century, or Tangsen, great master. You see, he came Nalanda, and he brought Buddhism, according to Nalanda tradition, to China. So same source. So therefore, now number of Chinese scholars who are showing interest about Buddha Dharma, now some of them, you see, express Tibetan Buddhism is authentic Nalanda tradition. And that tradition, very scientific religion. Some of them express that way. So now, I think India now should pay more attention. So as I mentioned earlier, you see, these Tibetan spirit, very strong spirit, very much connected with Buddhist tradition. Okay, like that. So then refugee, as a refugee, there are millions of refugees. But we, firstly, I think our relation, India and Tibet, like relation between Guru and Chela. We are Chela, you are Guru. I usually tell him, we are not only Chela, but quite reliable, trusted Chela. So that I think Tibetan tradition, which come from Nalanda, is really very, very helpful to keep Tibetan spirit. Since 9th century, Tibet divided. Amdo, northeast Tibet, and then come East Tibet, then Yuzhang, the central and western Tibet. But politically, you see, these kind of ups and downs, but entire 6 million Tibetan It's the same language, same script, same culture. So that unified Tibet. Very important. So while we become refugee, firstly, India is spiritually our home, not new. You see, 59, when we escaped to this country, you see, this is original our spiritual home. And then Pandit Nehru, since 54, I met Pandit Nehru. I know him. My first meeting in Peking, 1954. 가서 가서 지구상나다 기가 왔는데 시위 지진 가서
People's Congress. National People's Congress.
이지가 가서
National People's Congress.
말해. The establishment of the People's Republic of China. So Pandit Nehru invited. So I was there. Then Joanne, so offer one big lunch. I also have the because of the high position in the People's Congress Steering Committee, one sort of deputy. I'm one of them. So I was there. So when at the lunch, Joanne, you see, because of the brought Pandit Nehru, all the leaders, because of the line. And then Joanne is introduce these leaders. Then my case, Pandit Nehru, Joanne introduced this Dalai Lama. That moment, Pandit Nehru become speechless. Remember that, motionless. I think something like shamatha, meditate, I think. So I felt Pandit Nehru at that very moment felt. I think he must be reflected Sardar Patel's projection. India must protect Tibet. Otherwise, in future, some difficulties may come. Isn't it? I think Pandit Nehru, I think all these things, reflected in his mind. So I think at least half minute. Remember that? I feel very shy. How to deal with it. Then Joanne, very, very clever. His eyes always look like that. Chairman Mozart not like that. Looks more honest. And Liu Shaoqi. Joanne, very smart. So he immediately introduced next to me, Panchen Lama. No, this is Panchen Lama. Like that. This is the first meeting. Then 56, Buddha Jayanti celebration. I came here. There also, Government of India, I think, really make serious effort. The invitation from Mahabuddha Society and Rajkumar of Sikkim came, and the invitation, give me invitation. Then I asked Chinese officials. They say, oh, this small organization, you should not accept. Then accordingly, I respond that way. They sent message to Delhi. Then the name of Government of India extend invitation. Then I asked Chinese official, now what to do? Now they say, now invitation come from Indian government, so you should accept. Like that. So then, 56, Buddha's liberation, I came here. Then during that period, several meetings with Pandit Nehru and serious discussion about Tibet. So he finally, at that time, many Tibetan officials, you see, have the view now better to stay here, not return to Tibet. Because you see, already uprising already started in eastern part of Tibet, 56. Then 57, northeast Tibet, Nalanda area. Then 58, 59, in whole Tibet, some uprising like that. So therefore, we asked Pandit Nehru, now we are thinking, now not to return to Tibet, remain in this country. But Pandit Nehru, he personally, you see, one day he carried one copy of 17-point agreement, and then he mentioned on this cross, you should carry a struggle within Tibet, not from outside. Then finally, I returned. So Pandit Nehru has some moral responsibility after 57, beginning of 57, I returned. Then I follow Pandit Nehru's advice, how to tackle, how to carry struggle. But then things become more serious. Then 58, lot of problem. Then finally 59, whole Tibet, a lot of problem. Then 10th March 59. So then things become out of control. Then the last time I communicate with Chinese general in Lhasa. Now he told me at Nobulinga Summer Palace, there are few city buildings, some are a little bit distance. So the Chinese general, asked me, the place where you live should mark, then we will protect. That means they're going to bombard Nobulinga. So it's in that word, not very sure. Either protection or target. Things become very serious, very serious. Then, 17th March, we decided escape from Lhasa. So Pandit Nehru. So then, when I reached Mussoorie, Pandit Nehru come, and serious discussions. He have some morally some kazoda responsibilities. So since then, government of India, I think, took special sort of care Tibetan refugee community. Then Tibetan, firstly, settlement, and then secondly, most important is education. We asked Indian government, we want separate Tibetan school because also we want to keep learning Tibetan sort of script, Tibetan language like that. So Pandit Nehru fully support. And he set up one sort of committee headed by Union Education Minister, Mr. Mali. So Pandit Nehru really immense help. So as a result, now after nearly 60 years, 60 years, Tibetan community, refugee community, now quite well established and quite successful refugee community. So all this, firstly, I feel Tibetan spirit Tibetan spirit actually come from Nalanda Tradition, like that. Next question.
I'm Sriraj. I'm coming from Manipal in Karnataka. I'm working on the Tibetan issues in Mundugod in Karnataka. My question is that everybody says that the future lies in Asia. And do you see that the teachings of Buddha teachings of Buddha are going to show the future for this world? If that's the case, as you said, that you are a very trusted chela of your guru, that's India.
Too close. Too close, huh?
Yeah, your trusted guru. And how do you see the role of your trusted guru, that's India, in future?
Nangshuge. No. I always make distinction. Buddhism, as I mentioned earlier, Buddhist culture and Buddhism. Buddhist culture, including these academic subjects, psychology, logic, these things, and like in philosophy, like quantum physics, these things. So we should make distinction, religion and these academic subjects. So religion from Buddhist, but these academic subject is, as I already mentioned, is it for everyone? So I feel, as I mentioned earlier, now time come. I think you should utilize those Tibetan who have 1,000-year-old India's knowledge. So we already have some sort of program. Firstly, with the local government college, we already, and then we have some program, something like teachers training. We already now thinking. The college here, including the principal, they really showing interest. So I'm hoping we need some now sort of systematic sort of program. Firstly, you should start in Himachal here, then Karnataka state. Since all those historical, most important learning monastic institution established in Karnataka state, like northern Karnataka, the two big monastic institutions there, Kanden and Devum, and then Kasachoti, the southern, the Karnataka state, Belagubi, there, another sort of great historical, Buddhist learning center there. So now already, which is some local Indian now enter some of these monasteries. So they already carry some study. So we are thinking now one way, some local Indian should give the opportunity, and some may become monk or nun. And then we should arrange some facility, lay people study these ancient Indian knowledge. So we are thinking, now here, at least in Dharamsala, because Sara, the lay people, the opportunity to study here. So, like psychology and logic and certain philosophical views, including quantum physics, these, I think you can easily start class, study, like that. Then next question.
The future role of India. Future role of India in addressing the issues.
Kasa. I feel the Western world, of course, I respect all religion, all dharma, wonderful. But in the philosophical field, the Judeo-Christian tradition, just a faith. God, 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 God. Many Indians also say Shiva, 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 Ram, 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 Ram. India's tradition, as I already mentioned, over 3,000 years already developed how to tackle our emotion and psychology. These already developed. So Buddha himself, product of that Indian tradition. I think Buddha created one unique thing is anathema theory. The all Indian tradition, religious tradition, believe Atma. That also quite useful. When I explain the rebirth theory, the concept of Atma is very useful. Beside this body, there is independent soul or self, Atma. So from previous life, at Atma, no beginning, no end. So quite useful. But Buddha, anathema theory. Otherwise, you see, Buddha himself is a product of the Indian tradition. So now, this is some my friend, Christian preacher, right? Priest. Some of them, he told me, according to their own experience, now in Europe, the younger generation, who more scientific-minded people, to them, very difficult to explain about God. And to such people, Buddhist way of approach is very, very acceptable. So, I think all religion, wonderful, as I mentioned earlier, we must respect all these religions, all these traditions, but people who are more thinking, more investigation, the India's tradition. And among the India's tradition, now among the living tradition is the only Nalanda tradition. So therefore, I think India, as I mentioned earlier, one time in, say, I think 40s, 50s, ahimsa really influenced many parts of the world. Non-violent struggle. Now more educated people showing, now for example, the quantum physicist or psychologist, the only sort of source their knowledge further developed only Nalanda tradition, no other tradition. And then also you see India's, the tradition, the secular. Seems, I think, the 21st century, I usually telling when I give some teaching in South India to those nearly 10,000 monk students and also a few thousand nuns. See, usually a few occasions I express the kind of story.
There are two processes of following a teaching. One is the way of the people whose minds are not very sharp. They follow out of devotion. Then there is a second way of following, which is the way of the intelligent people who would not follow the teaching just out of faith, but they would follow it through reasoning.
So, between these two, if we follow The first one, just a faith. Then I don't know how long remain Buddha Dharma on this planet. If we follow second way, investigation, go that way, at least I think next few centuries, Buddha Dharma will remain. You see, people, everyone, you see, want peace of mind. So you see, I think in India also now, I think drugs, problems of drugs. In America and many countries, you see, the producer of drugs, they also have some responsibility, but mainly people who use these things. Because drug
Because there is a market to sell the drugs, and therefore there are people who sell them.
So therefore, the peace of mind, I think everybody want. Not through prayer, but through training. And then some scientists say basic human nature is more compassionate. One occasion, one scientific sort of meeting, so one scientist, he showed us one picture. Very young child, 6 months old, language not yet developed. And then to that, the child show one sort of motion picture, some cartoon. In the cartoon, you see 2 young children helping each other, smiling. When that 6-month-old child seeing that, show joyfulness, like that. Then, next cartoon, 2 children, you see negative attitude, one another. When that shows to the child, the 6-month-old child, clearly express unhappiness. So that scientist now concluded basic human nature is more compassionate. Then more important, the constant anger, constant fear, actually eating our immune system. More compassionate mind brings inner strength. That brings peace of mind. It is very good for our health. If we say more compassionate mind is something good because of Buddha say, because of Indian masters say, then many people say, oh, it doesn't matter. But if we explain this on the basis of scientific finding, then people, pay more attention. So like that. Therefore, I feel Buddha Dharma, not as a faith, but certain sort of way of thinking, mainly reason, experiment, and academic subject. If we emphasize on that part, that level, I think Buddha Dharma, particularly the Nalanda tradition, the Pali tradition, the foundation of Buddha Dharma. Buddha is the first Dharma wheel, Dharma teaching, then second Dharma teaching, then third Dharma teaching, 3. The first Dharma teaching at Sarnath, that is recorded in Pali tradition. Tripitaka, Kasa, Denusum.
3 discourses. 3 set of discourses.
Shila, Samadhi, Paranja. So that's common, or basis of all Buddhism. Then second Dharma teaching at Nalanda. Then Panchaparamita Sutra. You see, mentioning about shunyata, patit samupad, the Sanskrit word, patit samupad. That's a very scientific. When I discuss about this as a topic, then many scientists, they love the concept of patit samupad, interdependency, interconnectedness. Nothing independently exists. So when I discuss with quantum physicists, seems to say that subject very familiar to us, and our knowledge is more advanced than most modern quantum physicists, truly, like that. So therefore, I think Buddha Dharma, more intellectual level comes. I think very kasoda. I think there's real future. And this is not question of, I never try to propagate Buddhism. I always think how much from Buddhist tradition, how much we can make contribution for better human being, peaceful human being, happier human being, not conversion. While we saw some people, you see, converting, then we have some complaining. No? So then, logically, if you yourself, you see, try to conversion, then how can criticize other? So religion is completely individual freedom. Whether I accept religion or not, up to individual. If you accept what kind of sort of religion, up to individual. So India's secular way, I think, wonderful. Next question.
Sir, my name is Anuradha Chaudhary. I am doing my research in Punjab University. I am from district Kangra. And my research is on social and economical challenges Tibetans are facing in India. So this question is a part of my research. I want to ask you, what are the problems you are facing in raising Tibetan issue at international platform?
Kursa.
And
Ka. I think one advantage for Tibet issue, the Tibetan culture, the Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist logical, as I already mentioned. So more and more people now really showing interest to learn, to know more. So that automatically, I think, the image of Tibet issue also. Now this is actually not a political sort of way of approach, but culture, world peace, through inner peace, not through weapon, not necessarily through political election. Now these days, election very busy with the political leaders now in India. So, real peace through training. Mahatma Gandhiji and many Indians, I think, the inner peace. Through that way, real peace. So that part, I think more and more people showing interest, particularly scientists, and including some Chinese scholar, some Chinese university, some publication made here. In the public level, they cannot sort of see, no opportunity to look these sort of material. And some university, they usually used to get some sort of publication which made here. So some Chinese scholar, after they saw these things, then they eventually they realized Tibetan Buddhism is authentic Nalanda tradition and also scientific religion, they say. So more and more. Now today China, nearly 400 million Buddhist population, like that. So that automatically very helpful to keep Tibetan issue. Okay. And then politically, we are not seeking independence. One time I was in East India, so Mizoram people, you see, they, one occasion, one meeting, some press, some people say they are Mizoram, you see, independence, the different sort of community. Then I told them, oh, it is your own interest, remain within Union of India. East India, South India, West India, North India, Central India, different language, different script. But common interest remain within the Union of India. So similarly, in the European continent, First World War, Second World War, immense suffering, killing in the name of national sovereignty. After Second World War, mainly the German Adenauer and French de Gaulle, during wartime, arch enemy, French and Germany. But after Second World War, they realize now too much emphasis on national sovereignty source of problem. So better, you see, think common interest. So European Union started. So as a result of this European Union, at least the last few decades, no longer any violence, war. If that union not developed, then I think last few decades, I think some killing must happen. So India's union also was like that. The Hyderabad king, Raja, isn't it? Some effort. Then, to do the career. Sada, I just sent some army. So I think the Union of India is interest for over 1 billion Indian, 1 billion human being. So now world become, as a thing, common interest. National boundary, not important. So with these sort of feeling, and also practically, also you see, not easy. So in spite 7th century, 8th century, 9th century, according to Chinese history book, there are 3 independent nations: China, Mongolia, Tibet. But now we are 20th century and 21st century. So we should think the bigger, the interest of bigger object. So therefore, since 74, we decided not fight for independence, but remain within the People's Republic of China. The Pandit Nehru's influence also there. One time, as Pandit Nehru told me, America will not fight with China in order to liberate Tibet. He told me, it's true. So we should think realistically. So therefore, politically, we are not seeking separation. But some Chinese officials now still describe me as a spiritist. Actually, the reality is since 74, we decided now no longer raise Tibetan issue at the UN. And we are not going to seek independence, but we are fully committed to remain within the People's Republic of China. provided they should respect Tibetan culture, including Tibetan language or Tibetan script, like that. So now many occasions when I met some Chinese students or Chinese scholars in America, in Australia, in Japan, many occasions, when I first met, they are quite serious about that. When I explained, they say, we are not seeking independence, then everybody become smiling and easily become very, very friendly, like that. So, I think 2-3 years ago, I received one letter from Tibet. Of course, from time to time, sometimes I met some people from Tibet, some scholars like that, some letters. Is it then? One letter, you see, expressed, today, politically, China controls Tibet, invaded Tibet. In future, we Tibetan, through Buddhist tradition, Buddhist teaching, we can influence in China. It's true. As I already mentioned. So, basically, I always emphasize importance of sense of oneness of 7 billion human beings. It's very important. Too much division on the basis of country, or within India, on the basis of, let's say, the caste system. Outdated, isn't it? And then European countries, or outside, different nationality, and unfortunately now Middle East, due to different religious faith. Even among Muslims, same Muslim, follower of same Allah, same Quran, 5 times prayer, same, but name of Sunni and Shia killing. Very unfortunate. Too much narrow-minded, just we, and they. This is too narrow-minded, unrealistic, backward thinking. And this country also, caste system, lower caste. At a marriage with lower caste, there is some problem. I think, one occasion, I think, Haryana, some problem has happened, isn't it? Huh? So long, beautiful face. Okay. Don't count races or caste system. Buddha, I think 2,600 years ago, Buddha said, according to my teaching, no differences of caste system. The king and beggar, same right. That's, I think, important. So in this country, now religious, I'm now thinking, I think within this year, some occasion, some meeting with religious leader. I think religious leader should speak. The caste system is outdated. People believe the Brahma create whole people. So four castes from 4 faces of Brahma. So if these 4 faces are separate beings, then you can say something. But same person, same God, at 4 faces. Because Giri, Chamsiri, in correct.
Caste of the king, and then the Brahmins, then the Shudra.
All you see, same source, isn't it? Unless you operate 4 faces of Brahma, otherwise same Brahma, So these things, I think philosophical viewpoint also, you see, they making also the emphasis and differences of caste system is outdated, unrealistic. So I always see emphasis oneness of 7 billion human beings. Different religion is secondary level, different nationality, secondary level. Now look, global warming, no making distinction, this nation or that nation, entire world, isn't it? So we, human being, as a sentient being, with too much emphasis, we and they, like that. Recently, we have some meeting with some scientists, mainly Chinese scientists. One Chinese, 그래서 그 명디, 하도 정도에, one Chinese, 그 지 작업하면 되지.
Nobel Peace Prize winner.
Oh, so he mentioned next 80 years, the big change, climate condition, big change may come. So there is a real sort of danger of end of the world. I don't know. But I'm now 83-year-old, so my life, no worry. Maximum next 10 years, okay, no problem. So he mentioned, now the global warming, now Dharamsala, I think, is some of you, I think, may experience, may notice. I think you, when I first came, 1960, from Mussoorie, came here. Summer 60, I came. That winter, a lot of snow. Then each year, less. Yesterday, a little bit snow. So that our own experience, we noticed now year by year, the climate condition changing. So some occasion I telling the local authority, see, this moment, no sign of a water shortage. But meantime, we have to prepare. Eventually, snowfall, less, and these snow mountain, eventually may disappear. Then we should think some water resources. At the moment, quite available water resources. So this moment, I think, really worthwhile to think. Because of the dam away.
Water harvest. Water harvest. Water harvest.
Like that. Next question.
I'm Shweta. I'm doing PhD from Delhi University, and I just wanted to mention that my home is quite near to Nalanda, so it's very fascinating to know about Buddhism. But yes, there are a few things that I have not understood, as in I need some clarification as far as knowledge and wisdom is concerned.
Yes. Wisdom, yes.
For my understanding, I think knowledge is something which is passed from generation to generation and from person to person. It's exchange of opinion. And wisdom comes when one experiences one's own life. I think the more I experience, the more I see the life, then I get that wisdom. I mean, slowly and gradually. So, which has a major role to play considering in the larger context, the good of the people or the community. So please correct me if my understanding is wrong.
I don't know. I think knowledge, it seems, without much thinking, we learn from books or from teachers. that I think, I feel knowledge. Now, some of these rules or subject, we analyze, think more deeper way, and deeper understanding. That may be prajna or wisdom, wisdom, maybe. Not necessarily, see, different subject and make differences, wisdom or knowledge. I don't think. In Buddhist tradition, literature, the Nalanda Tradition, they say learning or knowledge from
So developing knowledge or understanding through listening or study.
That's first level. Through book, through lecture, just a mere knowledge. Then that knowledge, you yourself, analyze, use reason, including scientific findings. Then that second level of knowledge is we call samjung shiro.
So knowledge is based on reflection.
Now that brings conviction. That part we may call wisdom. Then the thing which you thoroughly analyze and bring conviction, now that then familiarize, then third level of understanding. Kumjung shiro.
So understanding that is drawn on the basis of your meditation, familiarization.
Like that.
That means India really has to work on its education system ultimately to reach from the journey from knowledge to wisdom. So in the larger context, if considering the problems existing at international level, then how do we try to address the problems, especially the problems of terrorism and the insecurity?
And wisdom, maybe, I don't know. Like those scientists, great scientists, who develop nuclear weapon to kill thousands of people.
Yes.
Is it wisdom?
No.
Oh.
That's what knowledge can be wrong also.
Oh, so then I think wisdom also some because of the implication.
Yes, the vision.
Wisdom stuff too.
So wisdom has some kind of a connotation of knowledge which is beneficial, helpful.
So I don't know. You should carry more research. I don't know.
Thank you so much.
Your Holiness, my name is Madhura. I'm from IIT Madras. I wanted to request you if you could speak a little bit about the relationship between democracy or Mangso and the universal democracy and the universal responsibility of preserving and propagating Buddha Dharma. How do you see these two working together?
Because Mangso Buddha Dharma, you see, now the ordination of monk, no single monk have the authority. Only 5 monks. So there is some indication of principle of democracy. I think we may complain Buddha. Buddha himself, you see, he can sort of susho nyaba zoya, korang tar jengwa.
So His Holiness was saying that in this case we can make small complaint to Buddha himself, because in his own case when he gave the ordination, he just ordained someone by saying, "Come here."
Oh, then after him, the ordination must carry 5 people. He himself exceptional. So that's principle. And Mazuda Kindungi Shisum Kindungi, that's challenge all of the Shisumrada. 시숨 두어즈부지 뉴슈리아 다 가서 마다리 pen dormishim 가서다 데 도마 접주면 그들이네 캠보이나 직체 엔드네 레터티체 가다 민나면이 용도 가서면은.
As His Holiness was saying that the spirit of the Buddha's teaching is very democratic in the sense that even in terms of ordination, at least 5 senior monks must be there, including the abbot, the preceptor, and so forth. So similarly, in terms of participation of restoration and purification of negative deeds and so forth, there are occasional worship retreat and things like that. They are also, it should be done by gathering of sanghas.
Now, last several years, some people asked me, Bhikshuni, I should sort of start Bhikshuni. That's beyond my control. We have to go according Vinaya as a tradition. So, according our Mula Savasiddhivadan tradition, the Bhikshuni camo in
So for the bhikshuni, the female ordination also, there should be a woman who is the abbot.
So therefore, as far as sort of bhikshuni is my control, because beyond my control. What I can do is approach nuns, study like monks. So now today, these days, the female Gishi.
So the first graduate of the female Gishi is already completed. So therefore their level of academic study is equal to the male monks.
No? So first time in South India, one occasion I mentioned, now we should have nuns Gishi, highest degree, nun. Then some old abbot, they showed a little bit of reservation of the Kishima Kandachayams. And
so some of the senior monks were a little bit hesitant about that in terms of their gesture. But His Holiness told them, since the Buddha has given the permission for bhikshuni, so why not Gishima also?
Oh, like that. So I think in principle, democracy and Buddha sort of the teaching. Then, my own case, I feel in according judging history book, history event, I think many wars, I think they very much related with feudal system. In Middle East, a lot of war, feudal system. I think in India also, the Raja, Rani or something, and fighting. So therefore, my own case, since 5th Dalai Lama, this century, 17th century, Dalai Lama institution automatically become head of both temporal and spirituality. I felt there is some connection with the feudal system. So since 2001, I retired from political responsibility. Then 2011, I totally sort of retired. We achieved elected political leadership. So now, in future, in case Dalai Lama institutions remain, now no longer any sort of connection with political responsibility. Now so I feel the Lama institution very much sort of the political field, that's feudal system in the name of religion. Then outdated. So democracy is the best way. Now India, the populated democratic country, wonderful, really wonderful. like that. And then, next question.
Your Holiness, do you feel that... sorry, I'm sorry.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes, yes.
Do you feel that Tibet will get its autonomy? Tibet will get its autonomy?
Quite sure. The Chinese constitution itself mentioned these things. So the problem is the totalitarian system. China, totalitarian system. Although there is parliament and different things, but ultimately all power within one single person. So I think totalitarian system, basically on the global level, I think that's outdated. Now in China also now, more and more complaining happening. I think Marxist, main Marxist theory, I think the working class people should have the right. So that's the democracy principle there. I think that the Karl Marx's theory and working class people, when Western Europe, in Europe, the industrialized revolution start, the working class people, factory worker, too much suffering, too much exploitation. So he stand right of the working class people. So that's principle of democracy. And then his economy theory, equal distribution. So that's socialism. So as far as because of socio-economic theory is concerned, I'm Marxist, truly. But I'm not Leninist. I feel Lenin destroyed, I think, real principle of Marxism. That also, you see, we can't blame him during wartime, civil war in Russia. So he, Bolshevik revolution. So wartime developed. So Lenin's mind, very much wartime militant thinking. So authoritarian system and ruthless rule. What do you think? Correct, sir. Just good.
You have the last question.
Yeah, His Holiness, my name is Priyanka. And I'm doing my research from Banaras Hindu University on Tibetan Studies. Actually, what I want to know is that what do you feel is the greatest threat that the third generation refugee children are facing because of the increase in the Western education and the factors of globalization? So what do you think are the threats that Tibetan children are facing in India or wherever in the rest of the world they are?
가서 해보셔보세요.
되게 쉬운 게 미럽 순버tun소리 아니던데 지게기 로종한테 제외도 아니 마음과 교회 제가 가르쳐 주실 때 가르쳐 주셨어요.
Challenges or threats, challenges, what changes are happening to them?
As I already mentioned, you see, world really facing some kind of emotional problem. Now some kind of problem, drug problem, too much alcohol. Why? Lack of peace of mind. So without touching alcohol, any drugs, if you have some sort of ability to keep peace of mind, the surrounding not necessarily positive, a lot of problem, but as an individual, you can keep peace of mind through training. So if I have no knowledge of Nalanda tradition, then I may touch some alcohol or some drugs. No need. That sort of ability to keep your mind. Main thing is honest, truthful, transparency. All these related with karuna, here, karuna. Karuna automatically become ahimsa and non-sectarian, respect all religion. So all these related with warm-heartedness. So I'm sort of trying to promote warm-heartedness, irrespective. That you see, honest, truthful, compassionate mind automatically bring inner strength. Inner strength there automatically reduce fear, suspicion. So all this very much related with training of our mind. And these, I think, Indian tradition, analyze things, whether you call wisdom or not. You see, our approach is really realistic approach. Emotion, usually one-sided. Now quantum physics, now some Chinese quantum physicist, I heard one article wrote by one Chinese quantum physicist that they found the people who believe quantum physics, you see, they are sort of
they are tight grasping at things.
That reduce. So, you see, and now according to Nagarjuna's Buddhist psychology or Nagarjuna psychology, very clearly mentioned all these destructive emotions such as anger and attachment is very much based on appearances. So things appear. Now here I have one American great scientist, very old. He not religious-minded people. He helping human being who suffer too much anger. He treats these people, I think, last a few decades. His conclusion is anger, when anger develops, the object which that person feel angry appears very negative, but reality, 90% of that negativeness is mental projection. That's exactly Indian psychology mentioned these things. So knowing, not based on appearances, but deeper reality. I think we all have same experience. You see, when you feel anger to someone, including your wife, a little sort of shouting, then after the anger reduces, then you feel regret. And sometimes you feel shy, isn't it? So the anger develops, you see, very much based on the appearances of exaggeration. So all these negative emotion, not solid basis, just emotion. Like karuna, or solid basis. Anger, no solid basis. So if you, time passes, compassion, karuna, through training, through reasoning, increasing strength of karuna, increasing. Or the anger, less, no sound basis. All these Indian psychology, truly Nalanda masters, their psychology. Now you should not think, you see, these things are Buddhist psychology. You should not think that way. It is psychology of human being. So I think India, really, I feel, the later part of this century, I think India can make significant contribution for world peace through inner peace. Not propagating Hinduism or Buddhism or Jainism. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.